Good morning, everyone. I am the representative of our group, which consists of me, Lloyd Catalan, Anthony Amper, Karl Sojor, Janice Mae Sid Bolongaita, and Jessa Mascardo. Now we're going to be talking about Motherboard, its parts and its functions. But first, let me start by asking what a motherboard is. So a motherboard is one of the most essential parts of a computer system. It holds together many of the crucial components of a computer, and it includes the CPU, the central processing unit, the memory, the connectors for input and output devices. Now, there are 9 major parts of a motherboard. The PCI, or Peripheral Component Interconnect, the AGP, which is the accelerated graphics port, the North Bridge, the CPU socket, the South Bridge, the BIOS, or the Basic Input-Output System, the IDE, or Integrated Drive Electronics, the SATA, or Serial Advanced Technology Attachment, and the memory slot. Now we're going to be discussing these major parts. PCI, which stands for Peripheral Component Interface, is a hardware bus used for adding internal components to a desktop computer. For example, a PCI card can be inserted into a PCI slot on a motherboard, providing additional input-output slots or ports on the back of the computer. Now, this means that it allows you to insert expansion cards into your computer. These can come into the form of sound cards, RAID cards, SSDs, graphic cards, coprocessors, and several other functional computer parts. The next is AGP. The accelerated graphics port was designed as a high-speed point-to-point channel for attaching a video card to a computer system. Primarily used to assist in the acceleration of 3D computer graphics, it was originally designed as a successor to the PCI type connections for video cards. The next is North Bridge. A North Bridge, or a host bridge, is one of the 2 chips in the core logic chipset architecture on a PC motherboard, the other being the South Bridge. Unlike South Bridge, however, the North Bridge is connected directly to the CPU via front-side bus and is thus responsible for tasks that require the higher performance. So the North Bridge chip is used to connect all major components of the motherboard with each other. It is used to connect the CPU to the memory, the cache, the PCI, the express bus, etc. Now let's move on to the CPU socket. The CPU socket, or CPU slot, contains one or more mechanical components providing mechanical and electrical connections between a microprocessor and a printed circuit board. This allows placing and replacing the central processing unit without soldering. Now it is the connector that houses the CPU and forms an electrical interface in contact with the CPU. The processor sockets use a pin grid array, or PGA, where pins on the underside of the processor connects to the holes in the processor socket. The next is South Bridge. Now, the South Bridge is one of the 2 core logic chipset on a personal computer. The other one we talked was North Bridge. And South Bridge typically implements the slower capabilities of a motherboard. Just like when we said that the North Bridge was the one who handles the higher performance, the South Bridge is the one that handles the lower performance. Now, it is a chip that connects the North Bridge to the other components inside a computer, including hard drives, network connections, USB, and fireware devices, the system clock, and standard PCI cards. The next is BIOS. Now, BIOS, we know, short for Basic Input-Output System. The BIOS is a ROM chip found on motherboards that allows you to access and set up your computer system at the most basic level. The BIOS primary function is to handle the system setup process, including driver loading and operating system booting. Now let's move on to IDE. The Integrated Drive Electronics, or IDE, is a standard interface for connecting a motherboard to storage devices such as hard drives and CDR-ROMs or DVD drives. Generally, IDE refers to the types of cables and ports used to connect some hard drives and optical drives to each other and the motherboard. Now let's move on to SATA. SATA, as we talked about, means Serial Advanced Technology Attachment, or Serial ATA. It is an interface used to connect ATA hard drives to a computer's motherboard. It is a computer bus interface that's used to connect host bus drivers with mass storage devices like optical hard drives. Now, the interface is commonly used to connect hard drives to a host system, such as a computer motherboard. And the last major part of the motherboard is the memory slot or the RAM slot. Now, a memory slot, or otherwise called a memory socket, is what allows RAM, or the computer memory, to be inserted into the computer. Most motherboards have 2 or 4 memory slots, which determine the type of RAM used with the computer. In conclusion, those were the motherboards and its parts and functions. The motherboard is an important part of the computer. It is the brain of the computer itself. That's why it's important to understand and know its parts and its functions, the individual functions of the parts, so that we can better understand how a computer works internally. This has been our group, and thank you for watching our report.